Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will study a specific and a very unique interpretation of Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi of a rather difficult verse, or let me say, which has been made a bit difficult by our exegetes of the Quran. And this particular verse is of Surah Yasin, and in fact it begins with verse 13. It says that وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ إِذْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ اثْنَيْنِ فَكَذَّبُوهُمَا فَعَزَّزْنَا بِثَالِثٍ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا إِلَيْكُمْ مُرْسَلُونَ. And recount to them the example of the people of the city when the messengers came to them, when we sent to them 2 messengers, but they rejected both. Then we strengthened them with a 3rd. So they said to the people, we have come to you as those sent. So the problem basically which has been faced by our mufassirun or our exegetes is that this says that 2 messengers were sent to a nation, and they were actually helped and supported by a 3rd person. Generally, our exegetes have this unanimous opinion on this verse that these 2 messengers actually refer to the 2 disciples of Jesus, who himself selected those disciples. They were not messengers of God, they were his messengers, they were his disciples. And then he sent them to Antioch, a city in those times which was part of Syria, and in modern times its remains can be seen in Turkey. And it is said that these 2 disciples, or these 2 students of Jesus, were sent to these people so that they could warn them, and so that these people should profess faith. Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi, on the contrary, thinks that this occasion of revelation or Sha'n Nuzul is not correct, and the words of the Quran themselves do not accept this revelation, and then they are this explanation. And then there are some other factors as well, which, if accepted and which, if given due consideration, then this occasion of revelation does not seem plausible at all. The first thing that he has actually mentioned here is that the common interpretation is that these disciples were sent by Jesus. On the contrary, as we have just seen, I've just narrated this verse before you, that the ascription of these messengers being sent is actually to the Almighty and not to the messengers. So it is said, "Is arsalna ilayhim," we sent them. "Is arsalna ilayhim," we sent them 2 messengers. So if God had sent these messengers, it's not appropriate at all that 2 disciples of Jesus, which were sent by Jesus, be mentioned in this way, because it's clear here, and in some of the other parts of the verse as well, or the section as well, that these were messengers sent by God, and it's not right to ascribe them to the Prophet Jesus. So this is the first objection which Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi has raised on this interpretation. The second objection that he has raised, or the second criticism that he has raised, is that as far as Bible history is concerned, we find that to Antioch, and this history is absolutely devoid of any mention of any disciples being sent to them. In fact, what these histories which relate to Bible and ancient times do mention is that Antioch actually took the initiative in accepting the call of Jesus without anyone being sent to them. So it's totally the contrary. And then the third objection, or the third criticism, which Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi has raised on this interpretation, is that the way these verses mention a particular city with the defining article Alif Lam on Al-Qarya, it shows that because this anecdote was actually narrated before the Quraysh, so it has to be an anecdote which the Quraysh knew, and it has to be a known thing, something which is very well known. And Had it been undefined, like Ashabu Qaryatin, it could have been, may well have been a proper use. But with the mention of the article Alif Lam on Al-Qarya says that it was something which was well known to the Prophet, and hence it is very unlikely that it could refer to some city or settlement which was far off, or which was not even related directly to the Quraysh. And the fourth criticism which Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi has actually raised on this interpretation is that as far as the Prophet Jesus is concerned, it is clearly written in the Bible that he was sent specifically to the Israelites. وَرَسُولًا إِلَىٰ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. And as is said in the Gospel of Matthew, that he said about himself that I've been sent towards the lost sheep of the Israelites, clearly telling that he had nothing to do with any other nation. His own mission revolved around the Israelites. So therefore, it's not at all appropriate that it should be related to a city in Antioch and something which is not even his own territory. And then the fifth and final critique which Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi has raised on this interpretation is that we see that when they denied their respective messengers, and when they denied these messengers, the Almighty actually punished them, and it was a divine punishment which was sent to that nation. Now, Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi makes this point, and a very important point, that when nations are destroyed as a result of these divine disasters, then it is because they intentionally deny a messenger of God, or which is sent to them. And this denial is basically a denial of the fact that they acknowledge the truth from their inside, but because of arrogance or because of other vested interests, they deliberately deny the truth. And for such people, the Almighty says that their fate is going to be destruction, and they'll be consigned to hell in the hereafter. But their punishment begins in this world when they deny their messenger. And this does not happen when two ordinary people or disciples or human beings in their human capacity, they deliver the truth. So people don't get destroyed if they don't accept the message sent to them by an ordinary human being or more than one. So this is only specific with the messengers of God. And of course, the disciples of Christ were no messengers of God. They were just his own students. So this is a very big indication of the fact that these two people, these two disciples, these two students cannot be implied here. So these are the five main criticisms which Ustaz Islahi has raised on this interpretation. And we see that almost all our Mufassirun, or many of them, a very large number of them, actually cite this occasion of revelation. And this is why Ustaz Islahi has actually taken it very seriously and presented his own critique that does not fall in line. After criticizing this interpretation, he has presented and posited his own explanation of these verses. And he says that the two messengers actually mentioned here refer to Moses and Aaron. This is the only example in the history of messengerhood when two messengers were assigned to the same nation. So they were sent to the Pharaoh in Egypt, and when it is said that is arsalna ilayhi musnain, that when God sent these two messengers, it actually refers to Moses and Aaron. And when it is said fa'azzazna bisalis, that we actually supported them or helped them by a third person, Ustaz Islahi makes this point that in other parts of the Quran, at other places of the Quran, we find the true believer being mentioned, who actually belonged to the royal family of the Pharaoh in all probability, and he supported Moses. At first he hid his faith, but when he saw that Moses was about to be persecuted and attacked, so he came out in the open, and he made a wonderful speech in the court of Pharaoh, and he addressed the Pharaoh and the courtiers. So the third person which is mentioned here, of course he's not a Rasul or a messenger, but he is a person who actually helped them, he actually supported them, he provided his backing. So in a nutshell, we can see that Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi says that the Qarya mentioned here is Egypt. It's not Antioch, it's not that two disciples of Jesus were sent there. It is that it was Moses and Aaron who were sent to Egypt, and they were sent to the Pharaoh, and when he denied them, then he was destroyed. And the verses ahead actually tell us about this destruction. And again, this question could arise that when Pharaoh and his army were actually drowned, and what is actually the meaning of this destruction? Here again, Ustaz Islahi has referred us to other parts and parallel verses of the Quran and told us that Egypt was also destroyed as a result of their denial. So on the one hand, the army of the Pharaoh and the Pharaoh himself, they were drowned in the sea, and on the other hand, the place where they had left, and the place where they had built their houses and dwellings and so many other structures, that was also drowned. And a verse in Surah Araf actually tells us, "Dammarna ma kana yasna'u fir'aunu wa qawmuhu," and we destroyed everything which the Pharaoh and his people made. وَمَا كَانُوا يَعْرِشُونَ, and their vineyards, the vine keepers as well. So we can see that this also falls in place. So in a nutshell, this complexity in the opinion of Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi stands resolved, and the important part here is that he has shown to us that once again it is the language of the Quran which rules as far as an interpretation is concerned, as all extraneous sources, which include hadith, not only hadith which found in hadith books, but also in tafsir books which present occasions of revelation, they can only be accepted if they are in line with the words of the Quran and with other principles of the Quran. So a very important part, as I said earlier on, is that if punishment descended and divine punishment descended on that territory as a result of their denial, then it cannot be because of two human beings or two students of Jesus being sent to that area. It can only be because messengers of God were sent and they were denied, and as a result the nation was destroyed. So I would urge all of you to please have recourse to Ustaz Islahi's original work here. His interpretation of Surah Yasin is available in Urdu and in English. Of course, Urdu is the original language. It was written in English. You'll find its translation. And if you are able to do so, you must read onwards from verse 13, and you'll find out his critique being penned down there by himself, and how he has actually shown us that the person who helped these two people, the true believer, the words which are used for this true believer in this passage are so close to what is used for him in other parts of the Quran, in other surahs of the Quran, like Surah Mu'min in particular, and everything falls in line as a result. And if you are able to understand this passage through Ustaz Islahi's interpretation, of course, no interpretation is final. It can be further critiqued as well. But as of now, it seems to be the most plausible explanation of these verses. And if we try to, as I said, pick up the original work and read it further, we'll find a lot more, because I've just summarized his interpretation. He has written many other things as well, which, of course, can be picked up by us if we read that original work. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.